Welcome back, Ronin Renegades. I am Lupine Fiasco, this is Daily FaB gameplay, and today's game will be played against Uzuri. For anyone who is new to the channel, welcome to the Resistance. What we do here is review replays of games that I have played on Talishar days or weeks after the fact, such that I lose my bias and could more objectively judge the quality of my play. I will walk through turn cycles as if I were taking them now, while explaining my thought process for the lines that I take, and compare that to what I did at the time of recording. We either learn from my mistakes or reinforce good play patterns, with the overall goal of tightening and optimizing our gameplay in the future, to take down paper events like ProQuests or Road to Nationals, and most importantly, walk away with that shiny, shiny cardboard. Today's game features my Switchblade list, and if you would like to check this list out or try it for yourself on Talishar, the FaB deck link is available in the video description below. While you are down there, if you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing to my channel. A subscription is the best free way to support me and to make sure you see daily FaB gameplay in your video feed 5 days a week. The best paid way to support me is through Patreon, and a Patreon link is also available in the video description. A Patreon subscription will get you Discord access, your name will show up in every daily FaB gameplay video, and there are even more exciting bonuses to come. Daily FaB gameplay will always be free 5 days a week, so for those who can afford to patronize me, I truly appreciate it. Without further ado, let's talk about our sideboard and our game plan. At this point in the meta, weirdly enough, Uzuri is the deck that I am most afraid of. When Uzuri first came onto the scene, a very fatigue-heavy style was the most popular, and it was very easy for FaB to deal with. When the most that Uzuri is doing in a turn cycle is blocking for 6, and Uzuri abilitying out a 6-power attack. Sometimes it's a CNC and we don't have an arsenal. Sometimes it's Nourishing Emptiness that is no longer on. That was just really easy to beat. But as Uzuri has developed in the meta, as very skilled players have been working to tune the list, she is very scary. She has a lot of efficient attacks and non-attack actions in her deck. She has a lot of disruption, and when all of it comes together, it's very difficult for FaB to race her. And that's the problem that I've been having recently, a reliance on this style of racing that can come together very well. Sometimes the Uzuri does not disrupt me on a turn when I have Art of War in arsenal, FaB cards in hand, and a Tunic activation available. But sometimes none of that happens. Sometimes I have a very average hand that cannot adequately deal with all of the damage Uzuri is doing, and I fall behind. Flick Knives flicks a Spider's Bite. When I'm below 10 life, I can no longer block well, and I just die. So this became a very difficult matchup, and it's one that I'm struggling with. Here we're going to see that I am on this race style of play. I'm going to board based on trying to do the most damage I can in the most efficient way. But I don't know if that's correct anymore. I am experimenting with boarding and playing against Uzuri as if she were Bravo, but I haven't put enough reps into that style of play to know if it's efficient. And I only say this to point out that I'm going to make some mistakes in this game. I'm going to take some suboptimal lines based on trying to race Uzuri, trying to kill her before she can kill me, and I don't think that is correct. What is correct is going second in this matchup when we get the choice. Getting early tempo can be nice. Uzuri blocks well enough that we are unlikely to leak any damage on turn 1, and based on that, it probably isn't even correct to attack on turn 1 if we have to go first. Stick a card into your arsenal, draw back up to 4, pass it over to Uzuri so that she does not have a chance to filter her hand. But if we can go second in the matchup, we ignore all of that completely and get the first crack at Uzuri's life total or hand size. Based on playing this aggressively, we are going to board out our Kodachis and our Mask of Momentum to board in our Emberblade and our Pouncing Links. We are intending to set up a big Art of War or Spreading Flames turn with a finisher at the end, tutored out by Mask of the Pouncing Links. Flamescale Furnace here is 3 points of life. Sometimes it can fix a bad hand, but mostly it is here because Uzuri does not deal arcane damage. We don't need our Spell Void. And in this most recent version of my list, I am experimenting with not having Tunic available. For the 60, we are just going to cut Bleed Out and bring in our Spreading Flames. Spreading Flames, very good card with Emberblade. Bleed Out is a very bad card without Kodachis. At least in this game, I am not bringing in defense reactions. Now, as I experiment with a more defensive, mid-rangey style of play, we are going to bring in Reinforce the Lines and Sink Belows. We're going to cut our Art of Wars, our CNCs, and a copy of Double Strike, just as we would against Bravo. But even then, I'm not sure. That all you got as a defense reaction is just a way to block at instant speed in the reaction step to deal with something like a use of Black Tech Whisperers. It can also block a dagger to prevent the on-hit effect of Spider's Bite and also replace itself at the end of the combat chain. So maybe it is worth it. I'm going to report back on all of this as I experiment more with the matchup, but at least for this game, we are bringing in just our Spreading Flames. The game plan here, nebulous. Here we're going to be racing. In my further testing, we're going to be playing more defensive, but I can tell you what we need to be on the lookout from Uzuri. Disruption. Uzuri has 4 very strong disruptive attacks in her deck, that being Surgical Extraction, Leave No Witnesses, Shakedown, and Command and Conquer. Codex of Frailty plays a support role in being a way for Uzuri to play any of those cards from discard in such a way that we either risk our arsenal or need to block. And on top of that, Uzuri has very efficient, effective attacks like Ravenous Rabble, use of Nimbleism, Nimble Strike, looking for scrap, and all sorts of just very good undercosted attacks for how Uzuri's deck is built. I've told you in the past, never arsenal anything, blank the power of Leave No Witnesses and Command and Conquer. The problem with this is if we never arsenal anything, then it's like Uzuri always has Leave No Witnesses and Command and Conquer. At least in the early game, until Uzuri starts getting Leave No Witnesses and CNCs into her discard, I do think arsenaling is correct. That if we want to keep up with Uzuri's damage in a race, or if we want to be threatening Mask of Momentum multiple times in a turn, we need access to that 5-card hand. And if we are using our Flamescale Furnace and our Tiger Stripe Shuko rather than Fandal Spring Tunic, we do have the ability to block a Leave No Witnesses with just equipment if it means keeping a very strong 5-card hand. So, do some experimentation on your own. I will be experimenting as well and sharing my results as we get further into the remainder of the Bright Lights meta. But for now, we can enjoy this game together. We can learn from a few very prominent mistakes and hopefully be ready to take down this nasty assassin in the future. Our Phoenix Flame goes to discard, and we draw into kind of a weird hand here. We should absolutely block this Nerve Scalpel. The standard Uzuri opening is Dagger, Dagger, Isolate, Uzuri swap into something bad. And if we are getting dominated at some point and we cannot utilize these cards on defense, we would have liked to be preventing damage at all this turn. So we should be blocking this Nerve Scalpel with a Ronin Renegade. Spreading Flames is the worst card in this hand currently, but if we draw into a blue at the end of this turn, it gets much better. Uzuri does play out a Command and Conquer rather than isolate Uzuri swap, so we do end up kind of accidentally preventing the most damage we could have. We accidentally play that turn very efficiently, but I don't think it was correct, just generally. The hand that we've drawn into here is kind of not great. We are going to utilize our arsenal here, or at least I would like to, But because Double Strike isn't Draconic, we can't pitch our brand to our Emberblade and give the Emberblade go again. So I guess the most efficient way to play this turn without using our Snapdragons is to brand with Cinderclaw, Double Strike, Snatch. The sequencing between brand and Double Strike doesn't really matter because we will not achieve 3 Draconic links to pick up and play our Phoenix Flame unless, if we wanted to pitch one of these 2 Snatches to pick up and play a Phoenix Flame, that is something we could do. But honestly, I would rather just Arsenal one of the Snatches. Again, if we never use the Arsenal, then we are effectively giving Uzuri a Leave No Witnesses or Command and Conquer every turn, and that just isn't how we win a game of Flesh and Blood. Uzuri has a Command and Conquer in her discard, so a Codex of Frailty is always going to be able to find some form of Arsenal disruption. So we should be utilizing our Arsenal because at least then the Codex of Frailty doesn't force us to discard. Opening with the brand here. What is at least nice about this turn cycle is that we don't give Uzuri a ton of opportunity to utilize her hand on defense. At a certain point, Uzuri has extraneous cards, and she could pitch them into her daggers to convert those cards into damage, but it isn't great. Uzuri would love to block 3 rather than pitch a card to a dagger. Here, we do pitch the Snatch into a Phoenix Flame, likely in an attempt to not Arsenal anything. I don't love that play. As I described before, we are just giving Uzuri a Leave No Witnesses or CNC every turn, and I would rather have a Snatch in Arsenal. This give and take, if blocked, will find a Command and Conquer and put it back on top of the deck. We don't want Uzuri to have that, so we are just going to take our 3 here. The hand that we draw into is, again, not great, just kind of awkward, and the Spider's Bite certainly doesn't help. I do think taking this 1 point of damage is correct. What we can do with this hand is convert it to 11 points of damage with Arsenal Disruption without even using equipment. We can E-Strike, bottom Ancestral Empowerment, give it go again, then pitch our brand with Cinderclaw to CNC. We still don't have an Arsenal, but getting a potential 14 points of value out of a 4-card hand is above rate, if only a little bit. So it is something I'm willing to do. If we do need to block, we have Ancestral Empowerment as a non-attack. It still has its 3 defensive value. We could block with a E-Strike as well for an extra 2, and then even put our Furnace in front of something like a Shakedown here. If Uzuri just pitches to play a Shakedown and has the Black Tech Whisperers available, we could at least prevent the damage. Finally, Uzuri playing E-Strike and drawing a card. We could block with the Ancestral Empowerment to prevent 3 points of damage. Then on our turn, probably just CNC and Arsenal the E-Strike. Uzuri does have Crown of Providence available, so the CNC doesn't have a ton of value. Now, we can assume that Uzuri would want whatever's in her arsenal, so having Uzuri trade that for a random card off the top of her deck is kind of okay, but overall, still just not great. We've drawn into a couple of pretty clunky hands here, but I do think that taking this E-Strike damage is correct. That lets us present 11 points of damage with some disruption rather than blocking with Ancestral Empowerment. Probably attacking for 6 and arsenaling the E-Strike. I do think that it is better value overall to just take the 5 here. That is the line that I decide on. E-Strike here for 5 does get blocked by the Crown of Providence, but unfortunately Uzuri cycles out the arsenal anyway. At this point, we could pivot away from our CNC plan and just pitch Brand into Emberblade. Maybe that's correct. We arsenal the CNC. This line of playing Command & Conquer just gets us 6 points of value. So I think at this point, if I am making this play, I am going for the arsenal. So I would just pitch Brand into Emberblade for 3 points of damage, arsenal my CNC, and try to get value out of it next turn. Uzuri does give us a single card on defense, so we push a little damage, we put Uzuri down to 3 cards, and we draw into a hand that would be really poor with that CNC in arsenal. We wouldn't have a great way to play out this hand and the CNC, so it kind of works out for us. We're not going to block the Spider's Bite. Our hand is already bad at playing defense, and we certainly don't need to block the CNC. So overall, we are rewarded for playing our CNC rather than sticking it in arsenal. But just looking at this one game is a little results oriented. I do think overall, arsenaling the CNC would have led to a better outcome generally. We are Spiders Bitten at this point, so our cards don't block well. We are just going to take 6. And our hand is not bad on offense. Getting to Bittering Thorns, Mounting Anger, Rising Resentment is a strong line. It is the line we need to take. We could Mounting Anger, it hits, banish Rising Resentment, then play Bittering Thorns to get full value out of this hand, but I don't like being completely face up against Uzuri. I do want to keep her in the dark just a bit as to what our full turn looks like, and if Uzuri can't block this Bittering Thorns, it's going to make our Mounting Anger more likely to hit. It probably doesn't matter a ton how we sequence this turn, but I do think that leading with the Thorns rather than the Anger is correct. We don't get to pick up our Phoenix Flame this turn, so something like Mounting Anger, Rising Resentment, Resentment hits, banish and play Bittering Thorns doesn't super matter. I suppose in that line we do have a floating resource for the Phoenix Flame, but as it is, Uzuri blocks everything out anyway, so none of that mattered. How do we want to play around this Wither? Considering that we don't have a defense reaction to 1 card block, then play around Shakedown, we kind of just need Uzuri to not have it. We could block this Wither for 6 with our 2 finishers, then Brand Snatch. Maybe that's what we're supposed to do, because a Shakedown really just ruins our turn. As it is, our turn is still a little shaky. We're probably going to break Snapdragons this turn, and the sequencing looks like Brand with Cinderclaw, Snatch, Snap, Pitch Salt for Emberblade, Phoenix Flame Lava Burst, which if we don't get disrupted here is a really strong turn. But we did just see Uzuri play a few defense reactions. She no longer has the black tech to block a breakpoint. I think blocking for 6 with our 2 reactions is correct here. Then we throw 7 with an on hit and we get to keep our scalers. If this is Uzuri swap into CNC, totally fine. If this is Uzuri swap into Death Touch, a little worse off, but still fine. But Shakedown here just absolutely ruins everything. We are committed to this aggro plan, so we are just going to take this damage. Yellow Death Touch is pretty good. We will go to 16 at the end of this turn, but we have a very strong turn leading up to that damage, and we are going to force Uzuri to block or take quite a bit of damage on her own. Uzuri giving us a card to stop the Brand is probably good for us. If she has a defense reaction, she stops the Snatch. She does not. Soulbead Strike is probably one of the worst cards we could have drawn. Not because a blue is unnecessary here. We get to pitch it to our Emberblade. We also have a floating resource for something. But we were already planning to pitch our finisher to our Emberblade, and we don't have our Snapdragons anymore. So we really wanted just something with Go again. We could attack with the Soulbead Strike, hoping it gets Go again, because Uzuri doesn't block. Maybe that is the right line. Pitch our Salt to Emberblade, pick up and play Phoenix Flame, then play Soulbead Strike for 3. Uzuri either blocks it, we arsenal our Lava Burst and put Uzuri on 2 cards, or Uzuri doesn't block and we get to Lava Burst for 5. As it is, what I will be looking to do here is pitch the Soulbead Strike to Emberblade, pick up and play Phoenix Flame, then make a choice between Salt or Lava Burst based on how many hits we have on the chain, and arsenal the other finisher. Uzuri chooses not to block here. We are not going to break Pouncing Links. We are just going to attack with Salt for 6. And we will save our Pouncing Links for a future turn. Uzuri takes 6. Goes down to 19. We go down to 16, but considering our life deficit leading into this turn, we are doing pretty well. Isolate here is not something we can effectively block. If we had a defense reaction, maybe, but as it is, we're not going to put any of these 2s in front of Isolate. We are going to let Uzuri perform the swap, and we are going to get Shooken. That said, our turn is still very playable without any of these cards. Uzuri does get our double strike, so we are fortunate that we chose to play Salt the Wound on our last turn rather than Lava Burst. And with the hand we have available, we have a few options. We are going to think about whether we want to pitch or play this brand. If we pitch the brand for Emberblade, we are looking at a 15 damage turn with the potential to pick up and arsenal a Phoenix Flame. If we play the brand, we are looking at a 16 damage turn without the risk of having a Phoenix Flame in our arsenal. We never want Phoenix Flame in our arsenal in this matchup. As much as I think, well, we should probably be arsenaling a little more liberally, we never want Phoenix Flame in there, because a Leave No Witnesses that gets blocked and that block gets shredded and our Phoenix Flame gets banished is catastrophic. We easily lose that game because we don't have the Phoenix Flame. So we should go for the higher damage line and play this brand. That will let us turn our Rabble Draconic. We can pick up and play our Phoenix Flame. We get our Shuko value, and then we deal just a bit more damage. Uzuri blocking with a Shakedown means one of two things. She either does not have a stealth starter in hand, or she has another Shakedown. I would put her on a second Shakedown. That doesn't necessarily help us in this situation, but it does inform potential blocking in the future if we do have defense reactions available. We know that we can probably put her on a Shakedown rather than a CNC. Choosing to break Pouncing Links here to find a Lava Burst, which lets us keep a Lava Burst in Arsenal, is probably okay. I don't think I like that plan. We are playing around a codex that we haven't seen yet. There is a fair chance that Uzuri has it, but if we were to break for something like Double Strike there, we put Uzuri to 4, so we still get some value out of our links. Or if we save our links, we get to block with 2 of these cards from hand, Mounting Anger, Rising Resentment. On our turn, we brand Emberblade, Phoenix Flame, and Uzuri has to block the brand and the Phoenix Flame to make sure we don't just get a Lava Burst at the end of it. So I think that was probably correct to do, but I do see an argument for not doing it. Overall, it was likely correct to just get our Lynx value and keep some protection against Codex. We have an Enlightened Strike coming for 5 with Go Again. What we really need to be aware of here is Flick Knives. Flick Knives will likely flick a Spider's Bite. We will take an extra point of damage and go to 4, and none of these cards will block as well. So if we did want to block this turn, we should probably do it now. Considering that we have a Lava Burst in Arsenal, we really want to make sure that we can get to link 4. So while Mounting Anger is the highest damage card in our hand, we really want a starter, and we really want this blue Lava Vein Loyalty. So I think considering life totals and considering that Uzuri has a card in Arsenal and in hand and a Tunic available, we should block this E-Strike with Mounting Anger just to make sure that we keep a slightly healthier life total and that we don't get punished by the Spider's Bite later. We still have armor blocks available to stay alive in the face of whatever Uzuri throws at us next. So let's just get some defensive value now. That isn't what I do. Again, I'm on the full
offensive
plan where I'm just looking to maximize damage. The problem is that we get death touched. And now, because we are at 4, we need to block this, and we can't even do it efficiently. We have to block with our armor, but that puts us to 2. And if we go to 2 and we get Blood Rot Pox, then we're dead unless we pay for it. And if we were to put a Mounting Anger in front of this Death Touch, then we go to 3, the Blood Rot Pox takes us to 1, and then Flick Knives kills us. So if we had blocked with this Mounting Anger earlier, then we are at 6. We can block this Death Touch with both pieces of armor. We go to 4. The Blood Rot Pox takes us to 2. And then we still aren't dead to Flick Knives. So we really see what happens when we don't block, when we don't play defensive, and we get punished for this Mounting Anger. As it is, we need to just go for it here. We are committed to the aggro line at this point, and the only way out is through. So we're going to block this Death Touch with both pieces of armor just to make sure we aren't dead. And then we're going to throw our entire hand at Uzuri and hope that we can kill her before the Blood Rot Pox kills us at the end of our turn. If we blocked with Mounting Anger, none of this matters. Yeah, we deal less damage to Uzuri, but it isn't now critical that we kill her. So absolutely a mistake on our part. Sequencing here, all that matters is that Mounting Anger comes at the end, or towards the end of this chain. Brand, Rising, Emberblade, Mounting Anger. We will have the ability to pick up and banish a Phoenix Flame to the Mounting Anger. So we do get our full value out of it. Uzuri so far has taken no damage, but at this point only has 1 card in hand and Arsenal and the Flick Knives. And chooses not to block the Mounting Anger. Let's see if she has the reaction. She does not. So we are going to banish and play our Phoenix Flame. Phoenix Flame here for 2, puts Uzuri to 1, and Lava Burst should be enough to win the game. And weirdly it is. Uzuri does not have the reaction, but what I'm unsure about is why she didn't block the Mounting Anger if she had 4 block available. I don't know what she put us on where that 4 block would have gotten more than 5 points of value, because by letting Mounting Anger hit, she effectively gave it a 5th point of power. And if we look at her life total, if she had 1 more point of health, if the Mounting Anger hadn't hit, our Phoenix Flame only comes in for 1, and Lava Burst only comes in for 5, then Uzuri goes to 1 at the end of this turn. We don't have a way to push that additional point of damage, and we die to Blood Rot Pox. So I'm not sure what the thought process was, but I do know that we got extremely lucky to win this game, and this is a real example of how the full aggro, no blocks, no defense line of play just doesn't work. We tried to go full aggro and we got punished for it. A lot of 2 blocks that were not effective at blocking, had no defense reaction, so we couldn't play around Shakedown. And we got lucky that Uzuri found Death Touches and CNCs instead of Shakedowns, but if that yellow Death Touch had been a Shakedown, we probably lose the game. If that red Death Touch was a Shakedown, well, we take a bunch of damage and we lose the ability to deal damage to Uzuri. So we see how ineffective this is now that Uzuri lists are more and more tuned, and we're going to have to change our strategy to adapt. We also need to get better at blocking with the Flamescale Furnace when we aren't saving it for Codex of Frailty, because we have a point of defense left on the Furnace, which would, in theory, keep us alive through this turn if we had made Uzuri take the same line of blocks. If we were at 3 here, because we blocked with the second half of Furnace, we go to 1 after the Blood Rot Pox, and Uzuri does not have the Flick Knives available to just kill us, regardless of what this card is in her arsenal. So overall, I am concerned about the state of my Uzuri plan, and it's something that I really need to revise. If you have an Uzuri plan that has really been working well for you, then please let me know what it is in the comments. I hope you like this video. I hope you learned something from it, even if it is that we need to revise the Uzuri game plan. And if you did, be sure to head jab that like button. In addition to advice on the Uzuri matchup, my comments are open for any questions or feedback, and I will see you back here next week for more daily FaB gameplay. Until then, take care.